All right, welcome everybody to the first in a brand new series of toy videos that I'm starting to do called The Rundown. Now, what is this series, you might ask? Well, I started doing top 10 toys, thinking I could get back to that ranking, top 10 and checking all the prices and what have you. And I realized there's some toy series and probably plenty out there that it's just not practical for me to do that, for me to go through all of the toys and rank them as top 10 and what have you. So I thought, you know what? I got to be able to do something else around this idea because I love toys. I still love talking about toys. I still love showing off these toys and these things that I'm looking for, hunting, remember, nostalgic about, collect, and what have you. And I thought, you know what? What if we just showed them? Like, what if I just went through and gave you the whole rundown on a wave of toys, of some of these classic waves? You might have seen some of these already on the shorts that I've been doing. I started with the G.I. Joe Wave 1, and I did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, things like that. But that's kind of the idea. But this will be a little bit of a deeper dive and not just me showing the action figures in a 1-minute video as far as shorts go. Hopefully you like those, and hopefully you guys check those out. But this will be a little bit of a deeper dive into the figures in that wave, if they're vehicles, and just give you some idea on pricing, because just to kind of keep this content a little more evergreen, I don't want to give you specifics and I want to rank them in a top 10 format. I just want to show you what these toys kind of go for and give you a sense of what they go for kind of like loose and in the package, because those are two very separate things. Unlike comics, toys are a little bit of a different animal because there are so many different ways to collect. There are loose toys, there are parts of toys, there are pieces, there's weapons, there's boxes only, there's in the box, missing instructions, there's instructions that you need, and then there's sealed, and then there's graded version. There are so many different flavors that it's hard to get an apples to apples comparison for pricing and things like that go. So that's why I'm not doing the normal ranking there. But hopefully you just enjoy and want to check out and remember and be nostalgic about some of these toys. So that is why I'm doing it. And if you want to see what toy series I'm doing, to start off this series, if you didn't already see it in the thumbnail, just hang on for a few seconds after the new intro, and I will be right back to show off the rundown for this week. All right, so what are we going to run down this week? This week's rundown is going to cover Marvel Superheroes Wave 1. These are those Toy Biz figures from the 90s. Now, I was kind of getting out of toys at that time of when these came out. I was getting a little older, started to be a little preteen and teenager there, so playing with toys really wasn't my deal anymore, but I still thought toys were cool. And I had a little brother, so I still had an excuse to check some of these things out. So a lot of these were toys that were given to him to play with, but I still kind of checked them out as well. So let's look into wave 1 of this series of Marvel superheroes. And starting it off, going to run through these alphabetical. Starting off with the big guy, Captain America. You'll see that Marvel Legends is now doing like throwback kind of, card stocks, card backs, classics for their current Marvel Legends figures using these, because this is a nostalgic look. These are classics. These are things that just jump out of my head. I remember seeing these at like Toys R Us, KB Toys, and some of the other places tons of places that don't exist anymore. Stores that just aren't around anymore that carried these types of toys, and there would just be like a wall full of them, and it was fun. It's fun collecting toys and trying to hunt them all and get them all to have the whole collection for my brother. Was a fun thing to do with my dad, that we would go and search for these things. So Captain America, they had the kind of look and almost like the sculpts of those original superpower figures. So they kind of had that broader, kind of the barrel chested, short arms are kind of bent. They try to add little features and motions to them, which was kind of cool. But that's the kind of basic rundown. They weren't the most articulate. They weren't the most, you couldn't move them all around all that much. Not very posable. Had a hard time standing up sometimes on their own because of being so top heavy with those big barrel chests and whatnot. It's like Liefeld drew these things, especially the Cap here. But that said, what does Cap go for? Well, carded, you could find these. The average sale price on Not 19 Sales is about $17.50. So again, these aren't that expensive. And when I do carded, like there's all different types of conditions on the card. I basically looked for anything that qualified that was an actual complete card. It was carded and not opened. That's what I put in there, and there's our average on 19 sales. This is over the last 3 months too, by the way. So keep that in mind. With all these averages, these are what eBay shows. All the eBay sales for the last 3 months went into this as I did my research for these. So there's the carded look. Loose, and to get a little bit of a better look at the character and the figure here, you see Cap with a shield. It's only $8.50. So again, you're not gonna make yourself rich if you go out to a yard sale and find this thing for $1. But it's still kind of a fun thing to go and find. So I know a lot of us like to go into this and that people just want to think about flipping. They want to know how much money that could be made. A lot of these figures and some of these are not all going to be about the money. Some of this is just about the love of the hobby and just the nostalgia of it. I mean, there were only 10 sales, but still, there are still 10 sales of this figure loose, still for $8.50. And then you got to pay shipping and all that stuff most of the time. But that's just give you an idea. So there we got Captain America. Moving on to our next figure, Daredevil. Got Daredevil up next. Really cool. He's got like a grappling hook type thing, which it's a little bit bigger than the normal baton, but you know, they're trying, you know what they're trying to go for. They're trying to go for that effect with the baton that he uses in the comics and whatnot. But in practical terms, having that huge ass grappling hook was a little it was not on the norm for Daredevil. But carded, this one's like 22.50 or 22.20, my bad. 22.20 on 11 sales. So again, still almost a dozen sales is not too bad for a figure like this, and still to be carded after all this time, because these are still from the 90s, so we're still talking almost 30 years that these things have lasted and survived. So that's also kind of impressive. Looking at it loose though, with its huge ass grappling hook and that string, especially if it came untied or if it broke, oh, nightmare. Almost $8 on 8 sales. And you're going to notice that too. When we get through some of these prices, it's going to be odd why some are more, like some are even more loose than they sold for a carded. And it's like, it's crazy. It's just a wild market. These are things that, at least not yet, we haven't hit that sweet spot where people are really going and looking for these things. It's not like the toys of the 80s or the 70s, because these are from the 90s. So they haven't quite hit that yet. So there's still a good bit of these out there because a lot of people were collecting at that time and saving these, which is why we still see so many carded, because people thought they would throw these away in a box, store them. It was the boom of the 90s, from comics to toys. Everybody thought they're going to send their kids to college on these collections. They're all going to be rich. And everybody was hoarding away all of these figures, from the Star Wars, Powers of the Forces, and all that stuff. Tons of toys and tons of toy collectors that kept these things boxed, carded, and whatnot. So that's why we still see a number of these today. But even with that, we will reach a tipping point where even those will get harder and harder to find. So keep that in mind as well. So we'll see when that tipping point comes. But right now, these are all still relatively cheap. So we can just look at these for the joy of it, you know, for the fun of it, the nostalgia of seeing Dr. Doom and his little helicopter hand and his little spinny drill fist, because that's what he had a little action for. If he had a little power-driven thing where his hand would spin, so his weapons would spin when you activated the little spinny thing. Yeah, I know. Real in-depth analysis there. The spinny thing. But carded, this is about $18. Only 8 sales on Dr. Doom. Maybe a little tougher to find the Doom in the card. Loose. Here you get a better look. You got that nice little soft goods cape fabric, which is kind of cool. $8.50. So a lot of these are in that $8 range. Loose. Keep that in mind too. And 10 sales on the loose Doom. We got another Doctor coming up next in this first wave. Dr. Octopus is next. And you can see here, he's packed in. He's got the claws, two with clamps, 2 with suction cups. Pretty fun. Carded, only $16.68 for on 15 sales for Dr. Octopus. Again, when I was looking at these, the range of these, sometimes they would sell carded for like $30 and then be shipping to the UK too, so it'd be like another 20 on top of that. And then other times they were selling for like $8 carded. Like, that's why we got an average, and that's why I gave you the average, because again, the prices can go all over the place with some of these things. Loose, and here you get a better look at those suction cups and the little clampy claw things. Only 3 loose, and the looses again average $17.36. So the loose average higher than the carded. Just telling you, the numbers are what the numbers are. I'm just showing you what I found. But I thought that was interesting. By and large, I think, to me, what I read from that is $15 to $20 either way for Dr. Octopus is kind of what this will cost you. So whether he's carded or not. So keep an eye out for it. Next up, we've got the Hulk, who had a little like a kind of a bendy throwy action. He had like a rock that he kind of threw. It was a real weak action crushing arm thing, and then bending the bar. Not the greatest Hulk. and he looked pretty squat, like because they didn't scale him to be bigger than the rest of the figures. He's just kind of right there. So, not the most impressive Hulk figure. I'll say that this is not the most impressive Hulk figure. And the little plastic rock, you're better off using a Rock Lord. But this carded almost $20, $19 for the Hulk carded though. Average on 15 sales. Lucy, you can see here, look at him. He looks so huge and broad, but he wasn't. He was right around the same size as Cap, but just wider. But once again, about $8. $8 loose. And that's only on about 6 sales. So not as many sales on the loose Hulk. Moving on, we got the Punisher, another fan favorite character. Punisher, and they gave him a bunch of accessories too. Look at all these weapons. They gave him all these weapons to go with him, which isn't something you don't normally see with a lot of these. I mean, you saw what did Hulk have? He had a rock and he had a bar. You got 4 weapons here for our man, the Punisher. Carded Punisher, about $15. 13 sales on that one. Loose, and again, doing the loose, there's no guarantee the weapons will be there, so loose is a crapshoot game, but he was only about $7 for a loose Punisher. I think because a lot of them didn't have all of the weapons to go with them, and there are only 4 sales. And yeah, I know this one's a little scratched up, but this is just an example, just to get an idea of what he looked like. But you can see here, he's still got, they all have that same body type, that same superpowers body type, and with the arms bent, it's like they reused the molds. It's kind of the feeling I got. Either that or they just kind of copied the molds from the old DC superpowers. And also those Batman figures from the time, too. Remember when they reissued the Batman figures that look like the superpowers figures in those gold packages, and they started adding some extra DC guys like Green Lantern and Flash and whatnot? I don't know. This toy collecting of the time. Right? It's just stuff I remember. That said, only $7. Oh, it says Incredible Hulk, but that's Punisher. I'm sorry. Got a little lazy with my my little presentation work here. One of my favorites, Silver Surfer. Up next, Surfer. He was not very shiny. Volume 2 or version 2, wave 2, whatever you want to call it, they made a shiny version of him. This version, he looked more like a matte finish. It was kind of just, yeah. And it had an action surfboard. Like, you kind of like just stuck him onto the surfboard thing, and I think it had like a little pullback, and you let him go, almost like those old cars of the day. Like, you pull them back, the little gears, it would wind up, and then it would drive off. Yeah. Not the most exciting of actions, but still. Only $15 for Surfer, which I'm going to probably look for one of these. And only 14 sales on this one for $15. Not too bad. Loose, well, as I said, right around that same thing. Right around that $8 kind of mark, $8.66. Only on 3 sales, but still kind of the same thing. And you can see here, this was a figure that, granted, I think I ruined a few of these. Because back in those times, I also used to like to make my own figures. Granted, I know a lot of people do it a hell of a lot better today. I mean, like I said, I was like 13, 14 years old, and I'm there with this, using the wrong kind of paints, using the wrong kind of materials, paint that never quite dried right, and I'd ruined plenty of Secret Wars Marvel figures because they had a kind of like a very bland and very open, canvas for you to paint your own things on. I made like image characters out of these. Like, I remember making a Hulk into a mall, and because a lot of the image characters of the time are just knockoffs of Marvel characters anyway. But you get the idea. But Surfer, because again, he had that kind of bland, like Surfer and Daredevils, I painted the heck out of a lot of them because I get them at the flea market for cheap and then try to make whatever I can make out of them. And yeah, not very great. That's why, again, I like checking that kind of stuff out today, because the materials they have today to make figures and customize figures, it's insane. And this is even before 3D printing. It's amazing. And I don't know. I find it fascinating. That all said, let's move on. Let's not get on to this little sidetrack, little rabbit hole. But let's get on, I think, to our last figure of this first wave, which is Spider-Man. And yeah, well, we had Spider-Man, so what do we need? We need suction cup hands, and we need this weird jelly web that he had behind him. Yeah, but it is what it is. It's what they released. But still, 1861 on this one. So on the higher end of our group, that's closer to 20 rather than the 15. And now 21 sales. So also one that had plenty of sales to go along with that for Spidey. Finding Spidey loose, you'll even see like this one, he's got a broken finger. Suction cups are missing from his hands because those kind of things kind of fell off after a while. But still around that 860 kind of range on an average of 9 sales. So all of them are on that same ballpark. None of these are super duper expensive. But if you were like me and you were either a kid at the time or you like collecting toys at the time, you know these figures and you know what I'm talking about. And I still just find it fascinating to see that that's where these things are at today. I would have thought these would have been a little bit more sought after, but then I remembered how many people were stashing and storing at the time, and all of that fun stuff. But that all said, that's our rundown for our first episode. That was just Marvel Wave 1. We can do a plenty number of waves. There's plenty of other toy series I want to get into. Just kind of testing this thing out, just kind of trying things out, dipping my toe into the water, trying to do some more toys. Hopefully you like this stuff. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Let me know some of the toy series you would love to see covered in this fashion. Again, I don't want everything to be about ranking and price. I just kind of want to let's look at some of this stuff. Let's just have fun digging into it, having some memories, and maybe we can do some of this stuff live. If you want to see this part of the tax show, even, just let me know, and we'll do something like this, and I can add it as a segment of the tax show so we can discuss all this stuff live, if that would seem better to you. But once again, just trying things out. So let me know what you think. And until next time, this was the rundown, and I will see you guys all later with some more content. All right, later.